Hi everybody, and thanks for joining me again. I'm Axel Wilkinson, and I'm here to show you the new Auto Light Flares effect found exclusively in HitFilm 2 Ultimate. So check out this scene. This was shot day for night, so the headlight effects are completely generated in HitFilm 2 Ultimate. With all of the trees in the foreground, there would be a lot of work involved in keyframing the lens flares on and off as they are hidden and revealed by the branches. But as the name of the new Auto Light Flares effect would indicate, this animation can all be handled automatically for you by HitFilm 2 Ultimate. Now I also have some other grading going on in this scene to create the day for night effect, so I'm going to start by covering that briefly, just so nobody's distracted wondering what all these other effects are doing over here. Okay, so here's the original shot. This was filmed at about 3 in the afternoon, so it was pretty bright out, but I knew that I'd be using it as a night shot, so we underexposed by about 2 stops while shooting. Then my first 4 effects are creating the nighttime feel. Crushed blacks and whites was used to darken the blacks. I left the whites alone as I didn't want to make the highlights any brighter. Levels was used for the main color adjustment. I reduced the gamma a touch to dim down the midtones, but more importantly in the blue channel, I boosted the gamma to increase the amount of blue in the midtones. Then I boosted the green gamma as well, because I'm an Incredible Hulk fan. Actually, I boosted the green gamma to balance the color, because it ended up a little bit too blue for my liking. Now, because I shot this with a DSLR, the footage needs some sharpening, so I added that next. And finally, I added a bit of diffusion to bring some softness back without destroying the sharpness I just added. Now, I'm ready to add the auto flares. I ended up using 2 copies of the effect here, mainly due to the day for nightness of the shot, and I've renamed them for organization. Because it was daytime, the headlights aren't really very bright in relation to the ambient light. So the first layer of auto light flares, the light boost, is just to boost the brightness of the headlights so the actual flares layer would work better. It's not really introducing a flare shape, just brightening things up. Then I have a second layer to create the flare shape. So we'll open this one up, the primary flares, and look at the specific controls for the effect. As with the standard light flares effect, the flare type menu has a wide variety of presets which you can choose from for a basic starting shape. In this case, I used the Anamorphic Enterprise preset, but once you've chosen your basic shape, you can use all these other controls to dial in the details of how that shape appears in your particular scene. Hotspot contains the main controls for where the effect will appear. Really, the only difference between the standard light flares and the auto light flares is how you position the hotspot of the effect. Threshold is used to set a brightness level, and everything in your frame above that brightness level will create a flare. Generally, you'll want this set pretty high, so only the brightest areas of your frame create flares. And max flares allows you to limit the total number of flares that will be created. Now, if we were to set the max flares to, say, 20, that doesn't mean that we're automatically going to get 20 flares in the scene, because the threshold still limits what areas can possibly flare. So setting the max flares to 20 won't guarantee that there's 20 flares in the scene, but if there were 50 places in the frame that exceeded the threshold we've set, then that would limit the maximum number of flares to 20 of those 50 places. So in this scene, whether I have that set to 20 or reset it back to 4, there's still only 2 places, the headlights, that are bright enough to actually create flares. The rest of the control sections here allow you to adjust the specific shape of the flares created with the same controls as the standard light flares effect. So here I adjusted the hotspot brightness a little, and then in the raise controls I adjusted the brightness and the length and width scale of the effect. To finish this shot off, I added one more effect, which is lens dirt. Lens dirt is another new effect in HitFilm 2, which you may have seen already in like every single test shot or image that Simon has ever created with HitFilm 2. Okay, I'm exaggerating a bit, but it has shown up in a lot of test shots, especially Simon's, for the simple reason that it can do wonders for integrating your effects and adding realism to a shot. Virtual cameras have perfect lenses, and while that might seem good, the reality is that often while we're filming, there are minor flaws in the optics, or in the midst of a rough and dirty action scene, dirt gets on the lens that doesn't get cleaned off right away. So simulating these type of minor irregularities can really help the effects we're adding to feel less perfect and more realistic. We'll get into greater depth about lens dirt in another video, but I wanted to touch on it here since I did use it in the shot. You know what though? I'm still not 100% happy with how these effects are composited into the scene, looking at it again. And so I'm going to try and tweak the color a little bit just so that it matches the day for night grade we've created a little better. And actually to do that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to select our light flare layers here, and I'm just going to drag them back below our grade. And I think just that change helps a lot to make those feel more like they're in the scene. It makes the flares a little more obvious, but they're also nicely tinted blue there in the flare elements. And I think that works a lot better for the scene. So I'm going to go with that. So there's our first look at the auto light flares effect. It's very fast to set up in most cases, although it does still give you a great deal of control for situations where you need it. We're sure that you'll find it very useful as you get started using HitFilm 2. And now that the software is finally released, we look forward to putting together more videos for you on the other new features, and especially, we look forward to seeing what you all create with HitFilm 2.